Hi, I'm Sebastian Gomes, host of Salt and Light Television's book show Subject Matters, and here's my take on The Rising Laity, Ecclesial Movements Since Vatican II by Massimo Faggioli. Massimo is a professor of theology at Villanova University and one of North America's leading experts on the Second Vatican Council. Remember, the theology of the Council is hugely important to this book. It said that lay people are primary actors in the mission of the Church, to bring the gospel into the world. But the Council didn't say anything definitively about the movements. Massimo has been studying the movement since 2003 and offers this, a theological, historical critique from, what's very important, an outsider. He does not belong to any of these movements himself. Some of the movements that he's talking about are the ones that have grown to be international organizations. You'll recognize some: Opus Dei, Focolare, the Neo-Catechumenal Way, Charismatic Renewal, Communion and Liberation, Sant'Egidio Community, Catholic Scouts, etc., etc. A central point is that these movements have implemented the theology of the laity from Vatican II in a very particular way. They've mobilized people around a charism. They've appealed often directly to the Pope for affirmation and for support, especially during John Paul II's pontificate. And interestingly, they're often separate from the local church. So you'll have a group of people belonging to a movement in a local church, and then you'll have the diocesan structure, the parishes, and the other Catholics who are not part of the movements a little bit separate. So that's an interesting phenomenon. And what Massimo has discovered in his research is that the movements represent a great paradox in the post-Vatican II era of the Church, that in the name of implementing Vatican II and embodying the spirit of Vatican II, they've actually deviated from some of the central teachings of Vatican II on the laity. Things like collegiality, subsidiarity in governance, inclusion, solidarity, diversity. All those things are still big issues for some of the movements, and Massimo dissects them. What's really interesting is that the movements experienced great support from John Paul II, as I mentioned, and Benedict XVI. Francis has been a little bit more critical for exactly those reasons that I mentioned, that he sees them as needing to really get back to the authentic teaching of Vatican II, incorporate themselves more into the local church, respect local authority of the bishop, and the diversity of the different people that can be belonging to a particular movement. The book is highly technical, but it's a hugely important contribution, and especially, as I mentioned before, from an outsider. In many ways, it's a book about church politics, so if you can get by some of the technical language, it's actually a fascinating read of one of the most important developments in the past 50 years of the Catholic Church. So highly recommended, The Rising Laity, Ecclesial Movements Since Vatican II.